We are live here on LinkedIn. We are also live on YouTube. So for anybody who just prefers YouTube to LinkedIn, feel free to watch there, but just be aware that we will not be able to field questions on YouTube, at least not now, because I'm only one person and I seem to be the only person who gets worse at technology the more I use it. So it's going to be really hard to look at questions on both platforms. So right now, for the time being, we're going to stick with LinkedIn Live. So again, welcome everyone. Thanks so much for being here. Kelly Sanchez, the head of talent acquisition at DigiCert, my bi-weekly conversation partner is here as well. Hello, Kelly.
Hi everyone.
Today we're going to talk about getting that first job and or internship. So we're just going to keep it super high level. We should have some people joining that are going to have some questions. So anybody who's joining now on LinkedIn, if you have questions as it relates to getting your first job, or what would be really helpful if you've already done that is to pop your advice into the comments section. This is hopefully going to be collaborative, and it's just not us, but other folks as well. And I think, for me, my focus right now is IT. So I might talk a little bit more in terms of that. Kelly, I know you're focused more broadly, but yeah, that's what we're going to talk about. So give me a split second, Kelly. Maybe you can start with the game we've done the last few times, and let me put myself on mute and go find the feed and see if we're getting any questions here.
Okay, sounds great. Okay, I will find a question for us. Let's see. Well, I'm not going to peek. Let's see. Would you rather live on land in a castle or on the water in a boat? Can I do both? Is that an option? And this is why. I feel like I would get seasick just living on a boat, but I also would love to live on a castle or in a castle with a boat on the side. So I want to do both. That's my answer. I wouldn't do one or the other.
Well, I don't know. I mean, I think for me, I'm just too afraid of the ocean. So it's pretty straightforward for me. I don't know. I guess there's like super yachts these days or whatever that basically probably feel like a house and you don't have to touch the water. But yeah, I think I don't need a castle by any means, but I'm definitely more of a land guy. I'll stick with the land.
With land, yeah. Maybe with a big mountain that you can go skiing.
That's 100% it. Yes, that would be ideal. So awesome. Well, thank you for stalling for me there while I got to the feed. So I'm in here now. For those of you watching, again, Kelly Sanchez and I are talking today about how to get that first internship and or first job coming out of school. Yep. Please feel free to put your comments in the comment section. I'm seeing some engagement here in terms of reactions. So thank you so much for that. That actually helps get this notification out to others. But what we really need are your engagements, your comments. These are your questions. These are ask me anythings. So again, today the focus is on getting that all important first job or first internship. But the reality is you've got two experienced recruiters here, and we're open to answering any questions that you have. So Kelly, just to kind of kick us off before we get any questions here in the comment section, I think we should probably talk about at least two things. One is a resume, right? For somebody who doesn't have really much work experience and how best to do that. And two is going to be the best approach to finding a job, right? So those are the things I think we should just cover if we don't get questions in the comment section. So let's start. What do you think in terms of a resume? Any best practices that you recommend for somebody who, again, doesn't have a ton of work experience and is going to be focusing mostly on school?
Yes. So the first thing that pops into my mind for recent graduates is include the education piece and what you've learned. So if there's any courses that are specific to the industry that you're going in. If there's any internships, include those. Any extracurricular activities. So were you involved in a chapter, or also projects that are specific to the industry that you're going in? Those are the things that, again, from a resume, what we're trying to gauge is your experience. And so those areas will be able to tell, and at least, I guess, align a little bit better with, give us a preview, that's what I'm trying to say, of what you've been doing.
Yeah. Yeah. I think to your point, and this is the challenge. This is a conundrum for every person who's ever, been in this situation, which is pretty much all of us that are currently working, right? That first job is all important. And so again, just to be specific and speaking about a resume, I don't have a ton to add. You kind of covered the keys. I think the one thing that's important is to, like we've talked about on this live chat before, you want to tailor your resume to a job description. But again, most job descriptions are looking for experience. So I think you mentioned it. And if I'm thinking about it from a technology standpoint, you really want to talk about the tools that you've used, especially the tools that you're seeing are, necessary in the job description. The other thing is, I hear a lot from people who say, I've applied to hundreds of jobs and I haven't heard anything back. And my big question to those people, when I get on the phone with them is, how qualified were you for the job? If you're coming right out of school and you're applying to mid and senior level positions, principal, staff level positions, that's entirely unsurprising. So there are, more or less entry level positions in pretty much every field. Again, the challenge is you're going to typically, they're going to be asking for some experience, which of course you don't have much coming out of school. But I think that's a really good segue to the second part of the conversation here, which is what's the best approach to take when it comes to finding that all important first job. So for anybody who's on the live stream, first of all, thank you so much. You're watching me, Scotty John, and Kelly Sanchez, the head of talent at DigiCert. And we were talking about getting that first internship and or job coming out of college. Please feel free to put your questions or comments into the comment section here. We'll address them as we go. But Kelly, going back to what I was just saying, what's the right approach to take when you are, coming right out of school, either looking for an internship or looking for your first job?
Yeah. So I would say it's never not too early to start networking. So when you're in college, your freshman year, there's a bunch of career fairs. I remember going to them, and unfortunately I got rejected because I wasn't a junior or a senior, because they were looking for internships and I had to have that qualification. But the one thing that I really liked about it is I was able to see all of the companies that were there and then be selective and choose, hey, I like that company, I like that one, and follow them. So when I got to my junior and senior year, I was able to then apply. I became friends with the recruiter or the campus manager, whoever was represented for that company. Because that's showing interest, it's showing effort that, hey, I want to be a part of your company. I followed you stalked you 4 years. That would be my biggest thing, is that it's never too early to start making those connections and really following them until you graduate. And so then they can see you're going to apply and you've told them that story.
Cool. That's great. I think that's such good advice. And my key qualifier, or I should say my key takeaway from what you just said is making a list of companies that you're interested in. So there's anybody who's watched these live streams, consistently here have probably seen the themes that are emerging. And for me, one of the most important things that anybody can do before you even start applying to jobs, before you even start writing your resume, is get very clear on what's most important to you. And to your point, Kelly, I think that from there, you want to try to identify companies that align to your criteria, right? Whatever that might be. Yeah. And if you're, younger in your career, and kind of just coming out of school or looking for an internship, you might want to cast a wider net because you kind of don't know what you don't know. But again, I think coming up with a list of companies that you're interested in is the first step, right alongside a list of what's most important to you in that first job you take, right? And again, be willing to be flexible, but that's what I recommend as the first step. And here, I think we both agree that it's not an or thing, it's an and. But a lot of times people are applying, and what that means is they're focused on their resume, they're focused on a cover letter, and they're putting applications into an ATS. So we've talked about this before. There's generally there's a human on the other end of that ATS, and generally that human is very overworked.
Yeah.
So to your point, networking is absolutely critical. I'll kind of go through, and I don't want to monopolize the conversation, but I'll go through a really quick summary of what I think networking on LinkedIn should look like. But before I do, Kelly, like, what are your recommendations for the best way to network virtually, as opposed to, like you mentioned, those career fairs on your college campus?
I know you're going to cover it, but the one thing I may add is just social, not only follow them on LinkedIn, but a lot of companies nowadays have an Instagram, have a Facebook. So get involved there. I don't want to take away your thunder because I think we might be going down the same page, but I have an idea in my back pocket if you don't share it. Okay. So I'll let you go.
All right. Well, I appreciate that. And you wouldn't be stealing my thunder. I probably learned most of the stuff from you anyway.
Thank you.
Well, let me pause real quick. We did get a question, so I want to address the question, and so let me just real quick. Let me read it. Make sure it's a little long. Let me see. Planning.
No, this is great. I like getting live questions.
Okay. Okay. All right. So this question, Shreya, is really related to what I'm about to talk about. So the question, to sum it up, is, what should I focus on to get an internship during my first year in a graduate program? And again, I think that this is, this is all of this stuff kind of applies no matter where you are in your career, but this is what I recommend. So to your point, Kelly, I'm going to go through this as quickly as I can, and please fill in the gaps. I'm sure I'll miss some stuff.
Don't go quickly. I think it's good stuff. You take your time. Okay.
So just for anybody who's joining us, I want to just mention, welcome to my LinkedIn Live here. My name is Scotty John. I'm here with my bi-weekly conversation partner, Kelly Sanchez. She is the head of talent at DigiCert. And we are here to answer any questions that you have about getting that all-important first job or internship. Today, we're every other week, we're here to answer pretty much any question at all. But anyway, if you have questions, feel free to put them in the comment section. I'm about to talk about what I recommend in terms of virtual networking, primarily here on this platform. Since we're on LinkedIn Live, I think it makes sense to focus on this. So I already mentioned that you want to get really clear on what's important to you, and then you want to make a list of companies that align to those criteria. For me, the list should probably be anywhere from 10 to, I'd say, probably no more than 25 companies. From there, what you want to do is start connecting to people in the space that you're interested in, right? So for instance, Shreya mentioned finance. So you want to talk to anybody in FP&A, in treasury, in accounting, and in finance, right? Also connect with the recruiters. And what that means is you send an invitation here on LinkedIn, a custom invitation, and you basically just tell them that you're interested in their company and why, right? Because you've done that research. So once you've started to build your network with the people that work at your target companies, then you need to start engaging with what they post here on LinkedIn. So Kelly's going to be much more of an expert on other social media platforms, as she knows well. I'm not an expert at all on those. But with regard to LinkedIn, people will make posts. I'm one of those people. And unless you're, I don't know, Richard Branson or Gary Vaynerchuk or,
Mark Cuban, I
Sally
like Mark
Krawcheck, or
Cuban.
there's a bunch of influencers, but most of us are not that, right? So unless you're one of those people, we notice when someone makes a comment on our posts.
Mhm.
Liking a post is great, but making a comment, and especially one that adds something meaningful to the conversation for the person who's posting, is what you're going for. And that's really kind of what you want to do, is consistently post comments like that, to the connections you've made at the companies you're interested in. So this may be over a few weeks. It doesn't have to be over months of time, or certainly over years. But all of a sudden now these people are going to start to recognize that, hey, that Scotty guy is actually adding value to the posts that I put out there. At some point, once you kind of established a little bit of rapport just in terms of engaging, at some point you can express some interest in either a job you see posted or an internship. Now, one thing that's super important as a new person coming out of school, or trying to get that internship or that first job, don't send a cold resume. Like, even as recruiters, we don't have time, unfortunately. And to get a resume sent cold, what you're doing without meaning to is you're asking them to do something for you. So whenever you do decide to reach out with an ask, make sure you give them an out. And what I mean by that is, hey, I know you're busy. If you don't have time to get back to me, completely understand. However, here's where I think I can add value to the organization. I see this position is posted. I would love to talk to you about that if you have the time, or if you recommend, or whomever you recommend I reach out to, I'm happy to do it. So that's kind of it at a high level. There's plenty more I could talk about. I feel like I've been talking a lot, and I can see out of my periphery that I'm getting a bunch of questions.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah. So Kelly, what do you have to add there before I start looking through these questions?
Yeah, no, go ahead, go jump and look at the questions. So I'm with you on reaching out to the recruiter or someone from the company. But the other thing I would also mention is, a lot of times once you follow that company or make that connection, right below that individual's profile, it says, and you have similar connections, and it shows what individuals you're connected with. And then also, when you follow the company, all of a sudden you see, oh, these people in your network are connected to them as well. And many times people just forget to look at it, but take a peek, because there could be a friend of a friend that you don't know. And it's easier to have that conversation with them, to be like, hey, I noticed that you worked at this company and I just followed them. I'm interested in it. Like, what's your connection? And click on their profile. Maybe they're just following them too because they want to be working at the company, or maybe they actually work there currently or have in the past, and they can give you more intel. And it could be good intel. Hey, absolutely, I'm going to keep tracking that company. I want to work there. Or it could be the opposite, like, actually, it wasn't a good experience or anything. So now you can check it off your list and know, hey, out of the 1025 that Scotty recommended, now I have 24 companies that I want to research, and they're not one of them.
Yeah.
So use that little connection piece to see how you're connected with people as well.
Totally. That's such good advice, because to your point, it's one of those things that we may take for granted because we live in this platform. But for those that, aren't as familiar with it, that's something that could easily be missed, right?
Yeah.
So question here from the person who originally posted the question. There's a particular company that she would like to get an internship with. And her question is, what would make my profile strong to get an internship with them? So here's the thing. Without knowing anything about the company, without knowing much about the structure, I would say the first thing I recommend is try to find other interns or former interns for that company. The likelihood is they were in a similar place that you're in right now at some point. And so they're going to be more, like, I would suspect they're going to be willing to share what this particular company does look for from an internship. Now, if your school has a history of putting interns at that company, then you probably have advisors, professors, or maybe even students, right? Perhaps it'd be alumni, but use those people as resources as well, and just ask the question. The last thing I would say is, going back to the approach I kind of outlined earlier, would be to see if you can just find somebody who's willing to share what the company looks for in general. But of course, if you can find somebody who, is responsible for the internship program and pick their brain, that would be ideal. Just keep your expectations level set, because again, everyone's busy and we're all doing our best, but once getting a request via LinkedIn or any other platform, I mean, right now, everyone's attention and time is spread thin. So just lower your expectations a little bit in terms of response. It is going to take, a fair amount of outreach for everyone, for every one person that responds. Anything you would add to that, Kelly?
No, I would definitely lean on the careers department, because to your point, they have experience working with these companies, have placed other interns, and can maybe even connect you with previous interns as well that have been able to have seen the success and were able to grab that internship.
Yeah, the people that are going to be the most charitable and generous with their time are those that can relate to the place you're in today. So former interns at that particular place, you could even search, that company and interns, and probably come up with a list here in LinkedIn that you could then target. And again, I think first thing you want to do is send an invitation to connect and try to engage a little bit before you go right in with a cold ask. That does really warm things up, and it helps them to know, okay, this person does bring value. I would be happy to help them, and I want them on my team, right? I want to thank Joseph, who's definitely an experienced. He's an experienced professional, and he's added some great comments here for the community. Joseph, just so you know, if you're still watching, we are talking about first jobs and internships. So I think your feedback's great, but to your point, I think you're probably focused a little bit more on people with more experience. Mm-hmm. Joseph basically said he thinks 25 companies is too few. In fairness, he may be right. That's just for me. I think in terms of organizing your own time and not going nuts, keeping it to that level. So, what did we miss, Kelly? I kind of did a quick and dirty on my thoughts about how best to network here on LinkedIn. But you had mentioned you might have some things to add there. And again, you're going to be way better when it comes to other social platforms.
Yeah, well, I was just mentioning more of the connection piece. So yes, you're talking about going on LinkedIn, connecting with people, connecting with the recruiters, the campus recruiter, or maybe the intern program manager. But again, if there's companies out there that you're super interested in and you do a search and you happen to see like your neighbor from 2 years ago is matched up with them, like use them as a resource. So I guess what I'm trying to say is, yes, do all this outreach specifically, but keep an eye out for the other connections or second connections that you may have that actually may be closer to you than what you've thought. Because I can't tell you how many times I've followed a company or done something. I'm like, oh my gosh, I had no idea they had similar interests in me. And it's like my best friend's husband or something. So keep that in mind. The connections can be closer than just what you're seeing online.
That's such a great point. And so for me, what that brings to mind is, if your kind of full-time job is to find a job, which especially for those that are looking for their first job, not necessarily, I don't know that you could say that for an internship, because you also are trying to balance, your school schedule in that case. But regardless, I would say take the time to go through your phone contacts and maybe pick, a number that works for you. Maybe it's 2 per day for those of you that are really gung ho. Maybe it's 10, but make calls to the people in your phone contacts. There's 2 reasons I think this is so important right now. And right now in particular, right? One, we're all coming off of a 1.5 years plus of not seeing a lot of people that we really care about, right? We've all had to kind of segment And typically it's your closer family, et cetera, that you're seeing. So just a call out of the blue to your friends is going to go a long way, right? And that, I'd say that would be what you'd lead with. How are things? How have you been? In all likelihood, it's been a while since you've connected. I certainly know that's been the case for me with a lot of people in my phone. And to your point, Kelly, then you just want to make sure that they're aware that you are looking for that first job or an internship, and this is kind of the focus. And if they hear of anything, to keep you in mind. Simple as
Yeah.
that. You never know whose like brother-in-law's dog groomer's best friend is going to have the opportunity, and that's so. Yeah, it's a really good point. I'm glad you brought it up.
Yeah. Thank you. That was my one good idea for the day.
Well, hopefully I had, because I talked so much, hopefully I had at least one gem as well.
No, I think what you added is spot on. So,
well, the thing I'll say about that is, I've had that conversation with individuals on phone calls or whatever it might be enough times to where I felt like it was important to kind of get it here onto this platform where we could, get more people at once to hear it. And again, that's just a framework. I think for a lot of people, they'll tweak that approach and tailor it to themselves in their own style. But I think it's a good starting off point, right?
Yeah.
So awesome.
Absolutely.
Well, again, I'll just say really quickly, thanks to everyone who's been watching. Once again, Scotty John and Kelly Sanchez, the head of talent over at DigiCert, my bi-weekly conversation partner. We do this every other Wednesday, so we won't be doing it next week, but the week after that, we'll be back with a new topic. We go live around 11:30, and it's an Ask Me Anything format, meaning whatever questions you have for two experienced recruiters, feel free, but we usually try and kind of come with a topic and a theme. If there's no other questions, and I'm not seeing any here in the comments, I think I'll say it's time to sign off. Kelly, anything else before we run?
Yeah, just in addition to, I know we're talking about questions in the comments, but if you have a topic or something that you want us to address, either comment or send us a direct DM, and we'll take a look at it too and do some research or whatever the topic is. So yeah.
Yeah, totally. And the other thing to mention too, if you watched this today live, or if you watched part of it, and you got some value out of it, it'll live forever on LinkedIn just as a post. So it'll be under my page, Scotty John, LinkedIn profile under posts. And if you feel like you got value out of it and there's others who could as well, then you can share it. It'll be there forever. You can revisit it at any time as well. So these are live, but then they get recorded and they'll still be there. All right, well, we got one more question in, so we're not off the hook quite yet.
Okay.
And I think this is a relevant question. It's not necessarily on the topic we're talking about today, but again, we're open to any questions. So let's do it. The question is, what kind of advice do we have for the individual who has been without a job for over a year now?
Oh, that's tough. I would say that honestly, this year has been insane, that you're not alone. And there's many individuals out there that are struggling to find that job. And I would say stay positive, like the right position will come. Don't force anything. I'm a huge believer. Timing means everything. And I know a year is forever, it feels like, but the right role will come.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, to your point, I think the first thing to say is, just that, that's a really hard place to be. Right. And I've known some people over the last year, to your point, Kelly, this year in particular, that have been in this situation, and they know how I feel. But for anybody who might be listening today that's in that scenario, just know that it's not about like there's nothing wrong with you, right?
Yeah.
And you've got to, as it's much easier said than done to say that you have to give yourself a break and just recognize that, staying positive is extraordinarily hard in those circumstances, but it's also very necessary. I would say from a practical standpoint that, that networking approach that I outlined earlier and that Kelly added some nuggets of wisdom to, I think that applies in that case as well. I honestly think that that's universal.
Mhm.
And again, what that means is you're virtually networking here on LinkedIn, but also on other platforms as well. And you're trying to add value to the conversation. At the end of the day, every job exists because there's a business need. And what that usually means is there's a problem that needs to be solved. So think about how you can solve that problem and make sure that that's the frame you're using when when you come to a conversation, an interview, when you're writing your resume, when you're doing cold outreach, anything like that. And as much as you can illustrate that, I think that's, always going to be key. Again, I don't have any magic bullet for the person other than just maybe, just be good to yourself, be kind to yourself, know that it's not you. Stay positive. You guys are going to laugh. Kelly, you might not know this about me because hopefully you think I'm a pretty positive guy, but I have my reminder
I think that's great.
right in front of my desk because sometimes it gets hard even if you are employed. And certainly if you're not, it's really tough. So take a break too, right? Like take a break from job searching and, insofar as you have the means to do so, try to do something for yourself, right? In that case.
Cool.
Joseph's got all sorts of good stuff for us. Joseph, I'll have to let you know that unfortunately some of the stuff the audience has likely gotten tired of us talking about.
No, that's not true. Is Joseph new? Is he a newcomer to this?
Yeah, well, new to the LinkedIn Live, and I do want to thank him, and I don't want to discourage questions. He's asking about resumes, right?
Okay.
He said, "How about focusing on the resume?" I think this is in reference to the question about the individual who's without a job for over a year.
Yeah.
For me, again, I wouldn't focus as much on a resume. Yes, you do want your resume to be, so just to talk about, again, some folks have probably heard us say this before, but I think a resume is highly subjective, for better or worse. Right? If you ask 10 recruiters what good looks like in a resume, you're probably going to get at least 8 different answers. And same goes for hiring managers. So I want to reiterate that a resume is important, but it's not an end all. And it's also, I might tell you how you should write your resume, and then Kelly's going to tell you tomorrow, who told you this? This is terrible. So the key for me, there's in all my experience as a recruiter, there are 2 things that stand out when it comes to writing your resume. Tailoring it to the job description insofar as you have the experience that they're looking for, number 1. Number 2 is as much as you possibly can, quantifying the business accomplishments, right? So how did you either make or save the company money? Because most people's resumes read like a job description, a list of duties. I did this, I did that, I did this, but they don't talk about accomplishments as much as they should. So those would be my 2. I think those are relatively universal. Did I miss anything, Kelly, or do you disagree at all?
No, I think so too. I like that approach, but then also if you can, like show the quantifiables with it. I saved this much, I made this much revenue, I saved the company this much. If you're able to showcase that and have that data available.
100%. Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree with you. Again, it's like, okay, so here's what I do. So here's my job, but here's how that has added value to the company. It's kind of the frame I think you want to think about it when it comes to writing a resume. And again, for those, just to bring it back to our topic today, for those who are fresh out of school or going for an internship right now while in school, you're not going to have you just likelihood is that you're not going to have that quantifiable accomplishment because you haven't had that first job. So once again, focus on what you're learning in your coursework and the projects that you're doing outside of, of kind of your day-to-day schoolwork, et cetera, that is related to the skill set that they're looking for. So once again, tailoring your resume, but instead of quantifiable accomplishments, you really want to be specific about the tools that you're using, especially again, as it, relates to what's on the job description.
Sweet.
All right. Anything else, Joseph, or anyone else? And thank you, seriously.
Yeah, thanks, Joseph, for your question.
Really appreciate the engagement. It's awesome. Hope you come back. We're here every other week. Once again, Scotty John. I don't mention this often, but I work for KēSTA I.T. We are a third-party IT recruiting firm. So I help people get jobs in IT, and I help my clients find, great talent. Kelly is the head of talent acquisition at DigiCert. So she does the same thing, only she's got one client. And we're here every other week to answer your questions about pretty much all things job search related, or really anything else you want to know from two experienced recruiters. Thanks again for joining us today. And once again, if you found value in this and want to share it, it'll exist on my LinkedIn profile, so you can find it there.
Cool.
All right. Thanks, everyone. See you, Kelly.
Bye. See ya.